What if humans could breathe underwater? To figure it out, we'll need red thongs. Yes, really. Imagine waking up one morning, heading to the shower, and suddenly realizing you don't need to breathe through your nose anymore. Instead, water fills your lungs, and somehow you're fine. No coughing, no drowning. Just a strange, cool sensation like your chest has turned into a fish gill factory. Humanity, in this bizarre twist of biology, has evolved overnight into fully amphibious creatures. What happens next? Well, first things would get really, really wet. At first, people would panic. For centuries, we've been taught that water plus lungs equals very bad news. Now, you can jump into a swimming pool, inhale deeply, and feel perfectly comfortable. Parents would scream when their kids dove under the surface and didn't come back up, until they realized their child was casually humming the SpongeBob theme song underwater. Once the chaos wore off, though, the possibilities would sink in. Entire cities would suddenly see their water features as prime real estate. Forget beach houses, why not just build a living room 50 feet under the Atlantic? Coral reefs would become the new suburbs. Dolphins would have unexpected new neighbors. And they would not be happy about the HOA fees. But breathing underwater wouldn't just be about fun vacation homes. It would revolutionize global society in ways we could barely anticipate. Fishing industries, obsolete. Why bother with boats when you can simply swim out and tap a tuna on the shoulder? Scuba diving, out of business overnight. Jacques Cousteau's legacy would be reduced to that guy who invented the thing we don't need anymore. And forget submarines. The military wouldn't need them when you could just send a squadron of underwater Marines with literal Marines' lungs. Of course, humanity being humanity, it wouldn't take long before things turned weird. The first underwater theme park would probably open within weeks. Roller coasters floating through kelp forests. Cotton candy would never be the same. But hey, seaweed-flavored churros might be the next big thing. And you can bet someone would try to open the world's first underwater Starbucks. Nothing says human adaptability quite like a soggy frappuccino. Now, let's get serious for a moment. Breathing underwater isn't just about swimming around like mermaids. It would mean access to 70% of the Earth's surface in a completely new way. The oceans, long considered a mysterious and dangerous frontier, would suddenly become as accessible as a stroll through Central Park. Scientists would go wild. The Mariana Trench, vacation spot, hydrothermal vents, weekend camping, that creepy anglerfish with a glowing lure, probably your new next-door neighbor. For the first time in history, humanity would genuinely colonize the oceans. Forget Elon Musk's Mars colonies, we'd be too busy building Atlantis 2.0. But with this newfound freedom comes new problems. First, predators. Sharks, squids, giant mysterious things with way too many teeth. Suddenly they'd see humans not just as land annoyances, but as part of the food chain. We'd be like that new restaurant that just opened in town, exciting, full of variety, and conveniently slow-moving. Every trip underwater could become a terrifying episode of, "Will I get eaten today?" Also, you think mosquitoes are bad? Wait until you meet sea lice. They'd love the buffet of billions of humans suddenly splashing around their living room. Second, infrastructure. Living underwater isn't as simple as holding your breath in a pool. Water pressure increases fast. By the time you're a couple hundred feet down, Your lungs may be fine, but the rest of your body? Squished. Breathing underwater wouldn't magically make you immune to physics. Cities would still have to be built in relatively shallow areas. Imagine Miami, but moved 30 feet offshore and covered in seashells. Deep-sea skyscrapers would sound cool until the first one imploded like a soda can, which admittedly would make a spectacular YouTube video. Third, pollution. The oceans are already full of plastic, chemicals, and things we'd rather not think about. Humans moving in wouldn't solve the problem. It would make it 10 times worse. Imagine walking down the street underwater and stepping on an old tire, a shopping cart, or someone's lost scooter. The Pacific Garbage Patch? It would become the world's first floating apartment complex. Tenants would complain about the smell. But hey, at least the rent would be cheap. Of course, governments would immediately weaponize the ability to breathe underwater. Navies would expand into massive human armies beneath the surface, staging battles unseen by satellites or drones. Underwater espionage would become the new frontier. James Bond would spend less time ordering martinis, and more time holding awkward conversations with squid informants. Nations would fight not for oil or gold, but for control of underwater real estate, shipping lanes, and the best coral reef resorts. Expect treaties, conferences, and the occasional fistfight with a lobster. Now, let's talk climate. Breathing underwater wouldn't protect us from the fact that oceans are rising thanks to global warming. In fact, it would make it worse. Humans would get comfortable living beneath the surface, and governments would have even less incentive to fix the climate crisis. Why stop carbon emissions when you can just move your whole capital city to the Caribbean seafloor? Politicians would announce with big smiles, while secretly panicking about jellyfish infestations in the Senate chambers. There's also psychology. We're not built to live surrounded by endless darkness, silence, and crushing water. Sure, we'd adapt. But imagine the existential dread of looking out your window and seeing a whale the size of an apartment complex drifting by, staring at you like you're the zoo animal. Human art, literature, and movies would change overnight. Shakespeare underwater would be less Romeo and Juliet, and more Romeo and Juliet, but also there's a squid. Pixar would make Finding Human. And horror films? Don't even get me started. Imagine Jaws, but the shark can knock on your front door. In the end, the ability to breathe underwater would reshape every part of human civilization. Travel, food, warfare, culture, it would all be drenched. We'd gain access to a new world, but at the cost of entering an ecosystem that isn't designed for us. We'd be invaders, explorers, neighbors, and prey all at once. Maybe we'd thrive, building vast underwater empires lit by bioluminescent skyscrapers. Or maybe we'd drown, not literally, but in our own arrogance, thinking we could conquer a domain ruled by creatures who've been there for hundreds of millions of years before us. Still, there's one comforting thought. If humans could breathe underwater, at least family road trips would be a lot more interesting. Are we there yet? Would be replaced by, Dad, a squid stole my backpack. Disney World? Forget it. We'd all be lining up for Atlantis Land, where the main attraction is simply existing in a place we were never supposed to. And let's be honest, someone, somewhere, would still complain about the Wi-Fi.